Welcome back to the Chosen Baseball Journey with Karim Garcia, Jonathan A. Hacohen. Karim, welcome. It's sunny where you are over in Texas. It's freezing here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And with the weather, it's warm in some places, cold in the other. That can only mean that spring training is coming soon.
That is correct. I guess everybody's excited as we are right now.
Absolutely. Just got off the phone with Steve Carsey the other day, and he says people are starting to report. It's incredible, the schedules and everything else. And I always wondered about that because you have some guys that option to choose to come very, very early, and some guys that choose to come right at the last minute. I remember back in the day, Kareem, there was always every team had one guy with visa issues, no matter what. And I always thought you knew spring training was coming. You maybe should have set that up a little earlier. So let me ask you, from your experience, my friend, in your playing days, how soon did you start thinking about setting up for spring training, and what was your timeline to report usually?
I usually try to report early, but you mentioned a lot of guys have visa issues. And the only reason is because they just finished playing the winter ball and they want to get some time to rest. Because right now they start tomorrow with the Caribbean series, and it's going to be in Miami this year. So you finish that, and all of a sudden you have less than a week to report to the team. So some guys try to, say that they forgot their passport or they haven't get their paperwork. But usually, if you don't do that, if you don't play on the Caribbean series or on the winter time, I usually try to be with the pitchers and catchers, which are the first ones to report.
And do you ever recall an instance where you reported late or reported right near the end? Did you ever have any issues as far as reporting wise, timing wise for you?
Thank God I never had that happen to me. I always report early, and they always get me on the. I always came overweight because of the winter time. I will eat a lot of stuff, especially in my hometown, and they put me in a program to lose the weight right away in a spring training.
I'm always amazed. I've heard stories, and I remember I had a buddy of mine that went to Cuba once, and he got robbed while he was walking through the streets. It was a little kid, like maybe 8, 9 years old, and took his bag and ran. Well, his passport was in the bag, and you don't stop and think sometimes you lose that passport. That's a lot of trouble to replace that, and I'm surprised more guys didn't lose their passports. It hit it somewhere because it could take weeks to get a backup going. So it's actually quite amazing that every guy pretty much finds a way to get the spring training on time. So kudos to them. And it's a very exciting year this year, approaching spring training because we still got so many free agents on the market. It's just recently Justin Turner signed with the Jays. That came out. We still got a few guys on the waiting list. And people kind of joke with me that all the remaining free agents, this is Scott Boras. Scott Boras, super agent, is known for waiting back. Tell me, when you were speaking with your agents at the time during your playing days, was there ever thought, I'm gonna wait? I know you like to sign early and get it done, but was there ever thought, you know what, I should wait closer to spring training, maybe I'll get more money?
Never in my mind will ever happen. I try to be as calm and relaxed as possible in my house, knowing that I already have my contract done, and all I have to do is prepare for spring training. Some of these guys are, waiting right now. They might end up getting less money than what they're supposed to get if they would have taken the money that the teams were offered at the beginning. So I mean, it's it's a flip of the coin. Unfortunately for them, you never know what's going on, especially if the team end up signing somebody else in the same position that you play and can actually play that position for less money.
Yeah, there's one case, Adam Ottavino, that he declined his Mets option. He's coming back to the Mets, but the contract he signed was less than the option that he had. So sometimes you're gambling with that. In my picture, Kareem, it's like this. The GMs don't get to make the exclusive decision. There's the president, there's the team owner, right? So especially when you're signing big contracts, you need these things signed off. And in my mind, as a business, you set a budget early on in the offseason for the most part, unless it's Shohei Ohtani, obviously, and then in which case everything gets blown out of the water. But otherwise, you set your budget. You, if it's me as a team, I come to, let's say I need two positions filled. I come to three free agents for each one. I say, listen, this is my offer. First person to accept it gets the contract. And you notice some guys sign very, very early, and then it feels like the guys that waited, teams come back and say, "Hey, I spent my budget already. Sorry, don't have much more money left." And it's kind of come to the point now. You're either at the top of the scale, like you're the Otanis of this world, the judges of this world. You're the rookies, and it feels like the middle guys are the ones that are really getting screwed out of this at the end of the day.
Well, they are only because the agents are telling, "Oh, I'm gonna get you more money." You know what's more money? $2 to $3 million more. That's what they're thinking. But the way it's going right now, the market, they're making a lot of money already. So might as well try to make a multi-year deal for less money and not have to worry in a couple of years than gambling every single year for free agents. And I understand free agents for the first time they're trying to test the market, but unfortunately, in the market like today, when you have the show of Tanis and the other guys that are going to make the big bucks, it's not going to be a lot of money left for those guys, first year free agents in the middle of the pack.
It feels like those guys, I don't know if you feel the same way, Kareem, but it's the guys in that sweet spot between a 10 to $20 million a year that they're expecting 3 year contracts, 5 year contracts, that all of a sudden they're signing for 1 year plus an option and they're signing for 10 million or less. And the money wasn't there for them. And this goes across all sports. I remember there was a case, Dennis Schrader was his name, with the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think they offered him an extension somewhere around $70 million. He declined it. And what does he do the next year? He signs for 1 year, $5 million. That's a hard conversation to have with your agent, correct?
Absolutely. And I have another one a while back when I was with the Detroit Tigers back in 2000 when we started the Comerica Park, the new Comerica Park before the Detroit Stadium. They offered Juan Gonzalez $160 million, something like that, and he declined. And he played only 1 year and ended up going with Cleveland on a 1 year basis for $15 million a year.
It's funny, I remember Juan Gonzalez when he came, and you remember with the Rangers, you had Juan Gonzalez, and you had Ivan Rodriguez. And man, those two were as hot as anybody on the planet as far as statistics go. And I remember Gonzalez saying at the time he didn't like the dimensions of Comerica. But I gotta tell you, my friend, at $160 million, I think I'll live with it.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, there was Poch Rodriguez with Ivan. It was Rafael Palmeiro too with them. And it was Julio Franco. Those four guys were there, Murder Road over there with them.
I actually I met Palmero right after the Toronto All-Star game, and he was nice enough to give me a bat and as a kid at the time. And I tell you, looking back on Palmero, and we'll talk about in a couple of weeks about the Hall of Fame voting. But a guy who wasn't huge, he wasn't like Jose Canseco big, but one of the sweetest swings I've ever seen. And I gotta say, my opinion's always been like this. You can take as much HGH as you want, you can take as much steroids as you want. You still can't swing like that.
No, not at all. And I was fortunate enough to play with him in Baltimore. We play in Baltimore. And I always love watching him take batting practice because he didn't muscle the ball. He was just such a sweet swing, natural swing, just like Will Clark back in the days too. Another natural swing from a lefty park.
So imagine this. I brought up Will Clark with Rafael Palmeiro, and he kind of gave me a funny look because I was a big Will Clark fan at the time. Those two went to Mississippi State together. So imagine that college team with Palmeiro and Will Clark. And we won't even get into the 1984 Olympic team with at the time Mark McGuire, Corey Snyder, etc. But there was a lot of talent coming out of there. There's still a lot of talent coming out of colleges. But now with these dollar figures, you're not seeing them sit in the minors forever because teams have big investments in them. It's a very, very different scenario. And I gotta ask you, when it comes to Palmero, something up on Palmero, If you had a Hall of Fame vote, would he be on your ballot?
I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Whatever he did outside baseball, or they're trying to say that he did, that's unfortunate. But I mean, you still gotta hit the ball, no matter what. You know, hitting the baseball is the most difficult thing to do in any sport, especially when the ball is coming out 95 to 100 miles per hour with a movement, a sinking or cut. I mean, not too many people can do that.
So I got to ask you the difficult question, and again, we're going to get to the Hall of Fame voting because it was very interesting on how that transpired. But I always say you're looking at the guys from the steroid era, right? And there's one guy that nobody ever talks about, and that's Ken Griffey Jr. And it amazes me to no end. You got Gary Sheffield that did not get in at the end, and Sheffield's numbers were incredible. Him and Griffey, when they came up, were 1A, 1B at the time. Their numbers were not that far off relatively. It's funny, Griffey got a lot of injuries near the end of his career. But it's funny that every single person that played in that generation, there's always the whisper, did they take something? But nobody tends to bring up Griffey. Why do you think that is?
I think his work ethic, that he showed through his career. Um, and I mean, you can see the guy was natural. He was always skinny. He never came to spring training from one year to the other 20 to 40 pounds heavier or stronger. I mean, it's almost impossible unless you're doing something, and he never did. And the other one is the Big Kirk, too. There's another guy that you never heard something from him, Frank Thomas. No one says anything about him because that's another natural, strong guy.
That's a very good point, actually, and I appreciate you saying that. I remember meeting Frank Thomas as a rookie. I remember when him, Ventura were the highly considered guys on the White Sox. Thomas was a tank. He was a tank from day one. It's unbelievable. And the way when he held a bat, the bat looked like a toothpick in his hands. He was that big.
It was scary to be a first baseman and he hitting. Even he was a right-hander. He'll hit the ball the other way harder than he will pull it to third base.
And that level of talent, and that's why he's in the Hall of Fame today. Clearly, he
That is
clearly
correct.
he had the statistics, and he earned it certainly. Um, Now when spring training, I tend to bring up this movie all the time on the show, and Steve Carsey tends to roll his eyes on me when I bring it up. But have you ever seen the movie Major League?
Yes, I have. Oh, a lot of times.
So with Charlie Sheen, a hilarious movie, right? And I gotta ask you, so having watched Major League, how accurate is Major League compared to actually being in the big leagues?
No, that's far, far away from reality. I mean, you're not flying on those type of planes like they put up the guys or the hotels or the sleeping over there at the baseball field. Everything is completely different. But I mean, it's funny. I mean, if you told me there was a minor league team, I will say yes. That's pretty close to it.
I remember there was a year, I think it was a Major League Two, when they had the Cleveland Indians at the time, right? And they signed a
Yeah.
big free agent, Jack Parkman. He was known as the big home run hitter, and he shows up in his Porsche, and everybody hates him, but he's the home run hitter. As being on enough teams, are there Jack Parkmans in this world? The big free agent that they're all for themselves, they don't care whatsoever about the team, or is that more myth?
Now you find at least one of them on each team. They get a big contract. Plus, it's the first time they get to a new team, and it's difficult to interact with guys like that because the rest of the guys playing with them for years, and this is a new guy with a big contract and supposed to be the savior of the team, but he's a little bit cocky, and doesn't take anything from no one. I mean, even if you're trying to help him.
So they are out there, the Jack Parkmans of this world. So where it starts for me with Major League, and we were talking about spring training, is I remember their first spring training, and they brought these people from all sorts of walks of life. And I remember vividly as you get to the end of spring training, as the guys get off the field, they're scared to go to the locker room because they're worried there's going to be a little pink note sitting inside their locker. So, is that pink note real, or does that not work that way as far as cuts go in spring training?
It probably was back in the 80s or on the beginning of the 90s, but to me, when I went to spring training back in 95, 96, I should say, they just call you to the office. And when they call you to the office in the middle of spring training, you're going down no matter what. I mean, I was a 19-year-old kid. I mean, I was expecting, to go down and bide my time again and wait for me to be called up.
And so, did you find generally in spring training who's sweating it more? Is it the rookies or is it the veterans on the 1 year contracts?
I think it's the veterans on the 1 year contracts because you're still invited to the team. They haven't added you to the 40-man roster at the time. And pretty much the team tells you, at the end of the year, at the end of spring training, we're going to add you. But sometimes happens that this rookie hits 440, 450 in spring training and open everyone's eyes on the organization. And they end up getting the rookie and the other guy. They just say, what, sorry, we don't have any spot for you anymore.
But it's funny about spring training statistics, because I feed into them every year. I get so excited. I'm saying this is the next Babe Ruth. I'm so excited. This person can't miss right now. He's hit 700 in spring training. This guy's hitting 050 in spring training. This is what's going to happen. And then the regular season starts and everything changes. Why is that the regular season when you're in April is so different statistics wise than spring training?
It's very simple. When you see the pictures, the first couple outings for them, all they have to do is all they're trying to do actually is throw strikes. Try to hit the corners, try to make the pitches. They don't care if they give up a home run or 10 runs, in the first couple outings because they are getting ready for the opening season. And the rookies, they have to go at it right away. So as a hitter, these guys are working on their fastball. You're taking advantage of it, because they're just working on something and you just basically taking batting practice of them.
So they really are working out the kinks in spring training. Spring training is not about winning and losing. It's really just getting the arm loose and everything else, I guess.
For the pitchers, but I don't know if you remember when Ichiro came to Seattle the first year, spring training, he hit 151, and they say, is this guy going to hit? What is this big phenom over here coming from Japan, and he's not hitting a spring training? He was just testing the pitchers and see how they were playing. He didn't show anything. As soon as the season starts, you see the real Ichiro, making contact with the ball, running fast, everything that he could, stealing bases. But he was just working on his things, his swing, and whatever he needed to be ready.
One of the greatest of all time, and a pleasure to watch. He was unbelievable out there, and I don't know if we're gonna see another Ichiro style out there because that slap hitter type. A lot of guys have tried to replicate that, and they end up having 250 averages with a bunch of singles, and that's not going to keep you in the majors generally.
That is correct.
So as we sum up today's episode, I'm thinking of one guy in particular, and that is on the Texas Rangers, Evan Carter. And surprisingly, with what this guy did in September, what he did in the World Series, he's still a rookie going into this year, technically. Yep. So if you were going to sit down with Evan Carter, preparing into this year, everybody's putting him down as the American League Rookie of the Year. He's the next decade-long star for the Rangers. What advice would you give him going into spring training?
Basically, just to have fun right now in spring training, work on his swing, get back to what he was doing during last year. Because right now is the pressure for him. Everybody's saying, okay, you're going to be the next, like you say, Roy, or you're going to be the next so-and-so all-star. And you put a lot of stuff on your head. You forget that you're there to work on your swing and try to be ready. I mean, whatever. You can be a pitcher, you can be a hitter, you can be whatever. And they put a lot of stuff in your head. You forget that you actually have to work on something.
Well, he's got to stay level. It's also a very long season, right? It's
yeah.
when you get it, when you're in the minors and you come up in September, very, very different than that grind from April to September in the majors. And how many rookies have we seen that have been great in the first half of the season and then they just seem to run out of juice after the All-Star break?
A lot of them, and some of them are sent to the minor leagues even to get some at bats over there and try to relax from whatever is happening to them in the majors.
Amazing. Well, we'll stay tuned, folks. It's going to be a great spring training, a great 2024 season. When you come up next week, we're going to be talking about, I'm sure, one of Karim's idols and one of the greatest players to ever come out of Mexico. I want to find out what made them so great. So stay tuned. This is the Baseball Chosen Journey.